Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, Tag12. How you gonna call me? I don't really care, and welcome back to World of Tanks. Now this time around, we're going to be playing the M4A3E8 Thunderbolt. This is the Tier 6 American medium premium tank. And to be fair, I didn't really know what I should do for the next couple of videos. I asked myself, what would I want to watch as a player who has basically seen every part of the game, but maybe not every tank. And the very first thing that came into my head was I wanted to do something with D-Day. Now, D-Day, if you look back, it's 2 days past, 6th of June, 1944. Obviously, the biggest, naval or amphibious landing in the history of mankind. And I thought, wait a minute, they had M4 Shermans going ashore, right? Those M4 Shermans that, were able to swim. I'm not sure what they were called, but I think about out of 30, 27 sunk before they arrived at the beach, and just 3 of them made it onto the Omaha beach. And yeah, that's pretty crazy if you think about that the 30 Shermans were supposed to, deliver close armored support for the infantry, where they were actually able to hide behind maybe just a little bit. If you think about it, they had no cover when they were storming the beaches. But that brought me to the point where I was thinking, I have so many tier 6 premium tanks, right? And most of these tier 6 premium tanks and tier 5 premium tanks are historical vehicles. Even if you don't believe it, the TOC 2 was actually built. It never saw combat, but it was actually built. It was a horrible tank design, but they managed to build one. And yeah, I'm not sure why they did it, but they did, and it does reminiscent of, it seems to be one of those vehicles that was supposed to fight, the trenches and be long enough to cover certain gaps in those trenches, not to get stuck. And I thought, why not start a series where I do review those tier 6 premium tanks and eventually those tier 6 tanks that were historical accurate. Now this is the Thunderbolt, and as you can see, right, the Thunderbolt VII. It has quite a historical meaning behind it. If you look at this, it looks really cool, and the very first thing that you do notice as a tank enthusiast or an M4 Sherman knower is that the frontal part of this tank is really stronger than most other Sherman tanks. Why is that? Because they welded additional armor plates onto this tank at the front, obviously making it heavier as well. You also have those side skirts right there at the turret to increase the armor just a little bit more. I think the M4 Sherman Thunderbolt VII, if I am correct, was the tank that was under control of, was it Patton? No, Creighton Abrams, excuse me. Yeah, Abrams used this Sherman, the Thunderbolt VII, as his command tank. And if you do know Creighton Abrams, you do also know that he is the namesake of the Abrams tank, the one tank of the US Army that still is in service and is the main battle tank of today, at least, of the American Army and some other states. But that's enough about the history lesson. Let's look right into the statistics. So what does this Sherman do different from the others? I basically already talked about it, and that's the armor. If we take a look at the firepower and the gun first, you'll notice that it's nothing special. It's just as any other American medium Sherman at tier 6 and tier 5. I'm not sure. Do I own a Fury? I'm not sure if I own the Fury in my garage, but the Fury has the exact same gun, the EZ8 has the exact same gun, and it's basically the same gun as, yeah, the EZ8 and the Fury. It's a 76mm long-barreled M4A2, which has an average penetration of about 128 millimeters, and a very decent rate of fire of 17.78 rounds per minute. You can see right there, that is 3.38 seconds reload time. And I don't have any, reload time or crew boosting equipment on this vehicle. I do have brothers in arms and a decent crew that is usually on the T54E1, but other than that, there's nothing that I've put on this tank to make the reload time faster. If you would put the gun rammer in this vehicle, if you would put vertical stabilizer and enhanced gun laying drive, the statistics would be better, obviously. So the average damage per shot is 115. That is nothing too crazy. Sometimes it's going to drop to 90 damage per round, and you do notice it when you're firing against tier 6, tier 7 heavy tanks. But still, at the same time, you have a pretty damn high rate of fire, 128 millimeters of pen, and if you use premium APCR ammunition, 177 millimeters of penetration, which is pretty damn neat. Now the turret traverse speed or gun traverse speed is 40.53 degrees per second, and it has 10 degrees of gun depression and 25 degrees of gun elevation. The aim time is also not too bad, with 1.97 seconds to have a fully aimed in reticle, and dispersion at 100 meters with 0.36. For tier 6, those statistics are pretty damn good. I mean, the average DPM on this vehicle is 2044, which does make this vehicle quite nice. It is actually very similar to the Fury. Now you might think, why would I need a Thunderbolt, or why is the Thunderbolt as interesting as the Fury if you already do have a Fury, and why is it even relevant? Well, now we're coming to the very interesting part. This is the Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt has additional armor at the front. This is what I meant before, the armor plates that they welded onto the front with 123 millimeters, which really does boast or give you the additional protection that other Shermans usually don't have, except for the Jumbo, which has similar statistics. But what the Jumbo does have more than the Thunderbolt is better turret armor. You can see the turret armor on this vehicle is only 63 millimeters thick all around. Now, that might just be a little bit of a misconception if you look at it. The armor plates at the front of the turret make this vehicle look more of a, stronger turreted tank with a very good frontal plate. But the lower plate is not as well protected, as you can see right here. If you hit those spots right there, you can penetrate. If you hit the machine gun port, you can penetrate, because they had to cut out an alcove to have this probably a 30 cal be able to stick out. Yeah, you have 30 cals right there, then you have the 50 cal over here. And the hit points with 750 is not as impressive either, but still not too bad. Now, when you're thinking about a vehicle such as this, which almost weighs 39 tons, if you look at the M4 Improved, which weighs almost the same, but still has a top speed of 56 kilometers per hour, yeah, you're looking down the drain with the Thunderbolt with only 42 kilometers per hour going forwards. Traverse speed with 42.87 degrees per second at tier 6 is usually not too impressive, but still you're going to be able to get around with this tank no problem. It's not going to be the fastest, but you're going to have quite the nice protection at the front of your vehicle. So concealment and spotting obviously aren't going to be the main factors, but we can take a look at the view range. 370 meters, and with binoculars and this crew, it goes all the way up to 472. It's not too bad either. So what can you expect of a vehicle such as the Thunderbolt? Well, what you can do is you can be quite a little annoying, pesky thing that constantly does damage if you get the side of a vehicle. If you get the front of a tank, it might look a little bit differently, especially if it's a higher tier vehicle, such as a tier 7 or a tier 8, in which case you shouldn't be at the front either way. But if you do find yourself, even the APCR shells are going to be having a tough time going through the tier 7 and tier 8 counterparts. But if you have the side of a tank, if you have a higher position, you're going to be able to do quite a bit of damage because of the very high rate of fire and because of the really decent gun handling statistics that you have. The armor, on the other hand, does not hold up very well against tier 7s and tier 8s, but against tier 6 vehicles, it certainly does its job very nicely. Against tier 5 vehicles, even more so. So what can you expect if you do get into a main engagement with same tier opponents? Let's say a Cromwell Berlin. Well, if you do get him in front of you, you can bully that thing very, very easily. Because if the Cromwell Berlin doesn't aim at your weak spots, he's going to be bouncing off your vehicle, because the average penetration is 145. It is a bit better than your 123 millimeters that you have, but still the angle that you have does give you a little bit of an additional protection. Now, that doesn't mean that every shot from the Cromwell is going to be bouncing, but your survivability chances are probably higher than the Cromwell's survivability chances, because he has worse armor than you, no angle at all, and is very flat. So having talked enough about the statistics, how does this tank fare battle? Let's find out. So I had a pretty damn good game, which will probably show you the very good capabilities of the Thunderbolt, but also show you the limitations that this vehicle does have. And what you can see right here is we're playing on the map Glacier, and we're playing against only tier 6 vehicles. This is ideal setup, no tier 7s, no tier 8s. You're not going up against tier 5s and tier 4s where you can just power creep them, but you can really see the full potential that this vehicle has and against whom it should have fought, or against whom it should fight in this game. So on Glacier, if we just take a real fast look, there are like 3 main positions that you have to hold. You have to have tanks on 3 positions. Basically, in the middle, you'll have to have some medium tanks and light tanks, competing for the middle to be able to get some spots on the enemies that are currently trying to cross over to my territory over here, or to the ABC line, where usually the heavy tanks brawl it out. So you might be asking yourself, Tiger Tank, you're in a medium tank, you set 42 kilometers per hour, it's not the slowest, it's not the fastest, but it should have enough ability to get you from one place to another. Yes, that is completely true, but if you look into their matchup, they have 2 artillery pieces, and if you're out in the middle, as the T-34-85M is, you're going to be getting pummeled by artillery. This vehicle, now remember, only has 63 millimeters of turret armor. If artillery does manage to get through the turret, they might just basically do quite a bit of damage to you very quickly. This is one of the things that people forget. This is not the Jumbo. The Jumbo usually has a very good turret, if you're playing like the advanced turret. It is very difficult to penetrate with. But the Thunderbolt has a standard M4 Sherman turret, but a very well armored lower plate or hull. And you can see right here, this Cromwell right at the beginning, he was firing at my lower plate. He bounced twice, now he's firing high explosive, damaging our gun, and now you can see that he has actually switched over to AP. And if we just stop real fast, I don't want to stop it too much, but you can see right there, he noticed this is the Thunderbolt. It doesn't have amazing armor on the turret, it does have very good armor on the upper plate or upper hull, so he decides to go for my turret, and this is the right move. This turret is not very strong. Now, keep in mind, it does have a very good gun mantlet though, and the gun mantlet is rather large, as you can see right here. We don't take out the Cromwell, but we do manage to go over to the Jagdpanzer 4, and this is where you can see how good this tank really can be with the DPM. Very high DPM, which allows us to work through those 2 tanks very quickly, 3-point-something seconds reload time, and we're good enough, at least we have enough penetration to deal with both these vehicles without having to resort to premium ammunition. So 2 tanks, 2 tier 6 vehicles, one of them very dangerous, the Cromwell, and the other one, the Agpan's, obviously very dangerous as well. Taken out of the game very quickly, and we are still half HP. We've lost 104 HP to our artillery, and that is the reason why I decided to go over here, because I had some cover at least. I knew that as soon as I will be lit, artillery would probably focus on me, because this tank is very quickly disposed of by artillery and is very dangerous against other same tiered opponents, especially like the Cromwell, because of the armor that you have. You have the armor advantage. Even against some tier 6, tier 7 heavy tanks, you can bounce shells if you do angle your turret or your armor well enough. Now we have a damaged gun, but it doesn't really matter. The game is almost over. We've held out over there, held the flank with some assistance by the SC-100 and by our artillery. We were able to take him out quite easily. Now, that would have been a different story if the Jagdpanzer IV had the top gun. He was using the 75mm gun, but at the angle that I was in, he wasn't able to penetrate me anyway. Even with the 88mm gun, he would have had a hard time going through my upper plate, you know, at that angle. And that's just something you have to get used to. If you're playing this tank, it's very forgiving in the fact that it has very good upper plate armor, but as soon as people figured it out that the turret is very weak, and you know that the shields at the side are only like additional I don't even know, yeah, cover-ups and not real armor pieces, they will start to go for your upper turret or your turret at all. And you can see right there the Hellcat fired AP and he bounced off of our upper plate, and that's just something that you can see from time to time because we had a very nice angle right there. We were basically angled like this and he bounced off our upper plate right there. And here I'm trying to blind shot the Hellcat because I know he's going to re-peek, and he actually does do that, and this time around he manages to penetrate our upper plate, but he's using APCR. That's over 200mm of penetration, I think, and right there, obviously, that is going to make that's going to make it through our upper plate. Doesn't matter if you angle it correctly or not, most of the time it's going to just go right through the tank. And this is the game. You were able to see just what kind of machine this is. With 10 degrees of gun depression, you can also just, you know, fight the ridgeline over there. But since the turret is not very strong, I highly advise against it to, you know, make yourself a target, especially with the turret. Just try to lure them in to fire at your hull, especially at your upper plate, because this is where the strength of this tank lies in. And, you know, it is basically just an easy 8 with more hull armor, and it's not a jumbo. It's not as slow as a jumbo, but it's also not as fast as an easy 8. 42 kilometers per hour is not exceedingly fast, and it's not getting you from one place to another very quickly, especially since it takes some time to accelerate to that top speed. But overall, I have to say I really enjoy the Thunderbolts. I like to play it. I love my premium Shermans that I have in my garage. They're all super fun to play, and I think that the Thunderbolt was one of those purchases where I was at first kind of a little bit disappointed that the turret armor wasn't as amazing as they like kind of pointed out it to be, but the hull armor makes up for the fact that the people just don't think of your turret being extremely weak, because well, they see those shields on the side of your turret. And they think, well, the turret is probably going to be just as tough as the upper plate, so I'm just going to try to hit the lower plate or maybe the machine gun port, and maybe we can do something out of that. Because the gun mantlet is also rather large, and the gun mantlet is, you know, accounting as spaced armor, and that is going to protect you as well. So they don't have a lot of space to shoot you, but the Cromwell did a very good job. He just, you know, aimed right there on the lower plate, right below the gun mantlet onto the right, and managed to penetrate my turret quite easily. So that's how you deal with Thunderbolts. And if you want to stay alive, keep your turret safe, make them shoot at your upper plate, at least at tier 6 and tier 7. Most of the time it's going to work in your favor. So I hope you guys did enjoy this little review of the Thunderbolt. If you did, as always, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.